Just because you get a lawnmower back up and running again does not mean your job is done, because if you go just a bit further with the project, you'll end up with something ready to go for quite a long time. We're talking about small items here that, if done well, could take your mower up one level, making it more enticing to possible buyers. Not only that, but what you'll end up with is something anyone would be proud of. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this simple Yard Machines lawnmower. And the problem is that it still needs a couple of small repairs before it's ready to be put back into service. Yes, it could be used as it is now, but you're not going to like having to deal with at least one of the problems that it has. Now, I don't expect that we'll need to replace any parts, but if we do, we should probably record all the stickers we can find. As you can tell by the model year, this mower is well over a decade old, meaning it's done pretty well to last this long, and hopefully we can keep it that way. So what's the plan for this mower then? Well, first up will be an oil change. We'll then sharpen and balance the blade, not to mention fixing a rather strange problem with the recoil. After that, we'll then check on the valve clearances, because if they're off, it could affect how the engine starts and runs. Now, you might not think that an oil change will be all that special. That is, until you see what happens with this one. You'll see what I mean when we look at the oil that comes out of this engine. But before we do an oil change, we need to get the engine hot first. That way we can get out as much of the sediments as possible. Also, the metal eyelet for the pull rope is missing, so we'll need to pull it from a lower position for it to work. So it's been running for several minutes and the engine should be good and hot. Let's see how it starts back up. So here comes the part that makes this oil change different from your typical one. The oil from this engine is much too dark, which can only mean one thing: this oil has not been changed in a very long time. And since doing an oil change by dumping it out this way can't get all of the oil out, any new oil put back into the engine will be contaminated by any of the remaining dirty oil. So to help keep that from happening and keep the oil as clean as possible, we're going to flush the engine. And after working the flush through the engine and dumping it out, you can see it too is now dirty, meaning it's working to clean out all the remaining contaminants. You can do this as many times as you like, or until the flush comes out the same color it was when it was poured into the engine. We'll then give it time to allow any remaining flush to leave the engine, so in the meantime, we'll take the blade off and do a balance check before sharpening it. It might sound odd to check it before sharpening it, but it gives me a chance to try and correct it instead of being surprised later on. And it turns out that this blade was already balanced, so I'll try to make sure to keep my passes even for both sides so it remains that way. We'll put the blade back on later along with the oil once the flush has had a chance to clear out from the engine. And until then, we're going to fix as many other problems that are plaguing this mower. So next up, we're going to be tackling the pull rope problem, but finding that part is not easy, so we're going to be forced to take it from a parts machine. This is a Recoil from a different engine that has its own problems and won't be needing it. The eyelet simply sits in this opening, so to take it out, we'll just push it away from the plastic. And as you can tell, there's really not much to this part. It's just kind of surprising that it somehow came loose from the other Recoil. To install it, we'll just slip it back into the damaged part and push it into place. Keep in mind that you might have to use some pliers to pinch the ends of the eyelet to keep it in place. Otherwise, just prying it as wide as it can go should be enough to keep it where it needs to be. And after it's been installed, test out the recoil, making sure it's working and that the eyelet isn't going to fall out. Next up, we'll check the valve clearances, but to make it easier to rotate the engine, we'll take out the spark plug and close the brake handle. You don't have to do either, but if you choose not to, don't be surprised by how difficult it is to rotate it. After that, we'll then take off the valve cover and expose the rocker arms. You'll also need to be aware that the valve cover can be stuck to the engine. Then rotate the engine until one arm is all the way down, while the other one we want to check is up and loose. We'll then take our 5/1000 of an inch feeler gauge and slide it into the clearance and see how it fits. It should just barely fit in the clearance, but as you can see, it's not able to. That means the clearance is much smaller than it should be and we'll need to make an adjustment. After loosening the jam bolt and adjusting nut, we'll put the feeler gauge back into the clearance and then turn the nut until it almost gets stuck. And once the feeler just barely fits in the clearance, we'll then turn the jam bolt while holding the nut still. After this adjustment, we'll need to rotate the engine again so the arm switch positions with the one we just checked is all the way down. That means the one we want to check is up and loose. We'll then repeat the same process here. This time, however, the clearance is much too loose and we'll be making adjustments to tighten it up. Sometimes I would try and find out just how far out the tolerances are, but it really doesn't matter. The point is to find out if it's out of tolerance and then fix it. But I will tell you that knowing how far out of tolerance the clearances are can help you with future diagnostics. There is one very annoying problem with this mower, and that is this wheel is out of alignment. So while we clean the axle of any rust that might be on it, we can also see why the alignment is off. You don't have to get it all shiny and new looking, just do the best you can before you apply your grease. And after spraying it down with brake cleaner, we'll take a look at the arm for the wheel, and as you can see, it is bent. That's not a problem, we'll just use some leverage and bend it right back. Try not to overdo it, otherwise you might have to bend it back the other direction and weaken the metal even further. This is probably a result of the wheel hitting items in the yard, which is to be expected, but it does show a lot of carelessness on their part as well. This also happens when the mower is used to get as close to objects as possible because the trimming hasn't been done yet. So I would always recommend that you trim first before mowing, that way you won't have to risk damaging the mower like this or even worse. Also, if you choose to use a heavy-duty grease on the axles, be my guest. The same goes for if you wish to clean the axles but not apply any kind of grease to them, well, that is your choice to make. But as for me, I like using a thin grease from a can because it's easy and super convenient to use. Now, taking good care of your wheels on your mower is a lot more important than most people are aware of, but if you choose not to do it at all, then I can respect your choice. But to be honest, I don't know why you would want your mower to be tougher to push than it should be. I guess I just need to work out more. After giving the valve cover a coat of paint and letting it cure for a bit, we'll install it back onto the engine. Now, I did not show it, but check and make sure that the gap on the spark plug is where you want it to be. The wrong gap on a spark plug could cause you to have starting or even running problems, so you might have to make adjustments to it. But if you think the spark plug is bad, then replace it. However, I'd recommend a quality plug if you're not choosing to use the factory one. You are welcome to use an off-brand plug if that's what you want, I just don't have a lot of faith in them. For those of you who are asking, yes, this blade probably should be replaced. However, it's still completely functional, so I might leave it up to the buyer if they're willing to pay for a new one. I think given the choice to buy a mower for $85 versus $100, most would just say they'll take the cheaper option without the new blade. And besides that, they can always buy the blades themselves since you can find them at any big box store. And after adding just enough oil to the engine not to overfill it, we'll start the mower and make sure we didn't mess something up. So it's been running for several minutes and the engine should be good and hot. Let's see how it starts back up. Well, it's easy to start and I think it sounds pretty good too. And besides what happened to the recoil, this mower is a good example of an unmaintained machine. The oil changes were neglected, the blade was dull, wheels were never serviced, and the valve clearances were left to do whatever they felt like. Now, to be honest, this was still a working machine, and if they hadn't put bad gasoline into the fuel tank, they'd probably still be using it now. I'm just surprised the engine was still working with the oil being as dirty as it was before the oil change. So I can only guess that this must not be the original oil from over a decade ago. But with the oil change and the flushing that we did, it should be good for at least several more years of service. Just keep this in mind, as of right now, oil is still very cheap, and even with infrequent oil changes, it'll make your engine last much longer than if you never changed it at all. So my question is, how often do you change your oil? And as always, there is no wrong answer to this one. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.